Welcome to the Carvel community meeting. It is September 28th, and who knows what time zone you're in. Today, if you're watching this recording, we encourage you to come join us live. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, regardless of which time zone you're in. If you are here today, please add any agenda items to our wonderful community meeting agenda, available at all the finest Hack.io MD locations nearest you. What else we got? If you aren't able to attend live, that's cool. We got Slack channels on the Kubernetes Slack workspace, #Carvel channel. You can email us, GitHub, Twitter. We're around. We love talking to you. When you attend these meetings, we ask that you please read and abide by our code of conduct, which is in the agenda. Additionally, we ask that you input your name and any organization that you represent so that we can keep track of you and reach out to you and learn more about your use cases and your concerns. And now, today's agenda, the announcements. All right, good. Done with the announcements. It's an empty bullet point. Does anybody have anything they would like to announce? Any important announcements? Okay, cool. No sweat, no problem. No announcements, except announcing the blog post, The Hidden Costs of Misconfiguration. Varsha, over to you.
Yeah, so we released the validations feature last week, and this is a blog post just to have some introduction and what problems we're trying to solve with this kind of feature. So you all are encouraged to visit this blog post. I have updated the link in the chat box. It's under carvel.dev blog and YTT validations. So yeah, that's the validations blog post. Let us know what your thoughts are and any feedback that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Varsha, but don't mute yourself just yet. Our next blog post is also about YTT. October 16, Getting Started Tutorials, Part 1.
Yeah. So yeah, that's upcoming something, a kind of really series that we're planning to have to like just ease the getting started part for YTT especially. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Excellent, thank you. And now, oh yeah, wait, I'm supposed to say, you, the community, we want you. Uncle Carvel wants you to share stuff. We'll send you a t-shirt. Maybe you don't own one yet, but you could. We'll send you a t-shirt if you sign up and write us a blog post. Send your blog post to dear old Uncle Carvel, okay? And then you get a t-shirt. Releases, on to the releases. Starring everybody's favorite, only other person to talk so far in this meeting, Varsha, will you tell us about the new YTT release?
Yeah, so basically this release had the major feature that we have been talking about, data value schema validations. And earlier it was released as an experimental feature. Now the experimental flag is removed and it is generally available. So try it out and let us know if you have any questions, any feedback on this schema validations. I have also included the, I have included the blog post, as well as there are some resources that we have. We have preview on the schema validations. We have a demo that is on YouTube channel that will introduce you how to use these validations. And then we have validations cheat sheet, which can be helpful in quick starting this validations on your configuration file. So give it a try.
Thank you very much, Varsha. And now, introducing a brand new phase of today's community meeting, somebody else talking about the vendor release. Joao.
Do you want me to give it a shot? I can give it a shot. So vendor was released. I thought, to be fair, I thought like this was already talked about on the last community meeting, but apparently we released after the community meeting. So there we go. We could not be talking in the future, but apparently Vindir was released, version 031, and it has like 2 things, even though I wrote just one. One is just like a nice thing. But from now on, you are able to tell Vindir to cache images and bundles for you, right? Like, how awesome is that? So by providing a flag, an environment variable, you can now tell Vindir to just cache me in this particular folder the images and bundles. So there's some information, there's a link there for the documentation on how to use this feature. And I know y'all are tingling and saying, oh my God, is this gonna go to kapp-controller? It is, and we already have a PR for that will enable this behavior in kapp-controller, but there you go. So another pretty exciting thing that comes with this Vindir release is that Vindir now uses image package as a library. Unfortunately, not on everything that it does, but for this particular feature, it uses it as a library. And the next thing that's going to happen on Vindir is going to be to integrate the rest. There's like one more call to image package as a binary that still exists, but I believe from version 032 forward, Vindir will not require you to have image package installed anymore in your computer when you're using Vindir. And I think that's like a huge thing, because now it means that we're starting to have some API points that people can start looking at and start using if they want to use Carvel as a library. And I spoke too much already, so back to you, kapp-controller.
Thank you, Joao. This is very exciting. It really is. We do get a lot of questions about our programmatic APIs and integrating with us as a library. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity, as they say, to dog food our own APIs. Okay, kapp-controller version 0.41.2. Ignore the .2. There isn't any other releases before it. We just had a bumpy release process. Should I not say that on the recording? It does not include the new feature in vendor because we haven't finished that PR yet. It does include the stuff that Neil did. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, Neil, about
I can give a brief synopsis.
great.
The templating phase in kapp-controller now has access, if you give it the right field, when you're configuring your fetch, your template stage. We'll now have the kapp-controller version that is currently running on your cluster, and the Kubernetes version that is running. If you're using an external cluster, it will give you that version. One interesting outcome from this is that if you're using a Helm as your templater and you want the Kubernetes version, if you specify that field, you get access to it as part of the capabilities in Helm. So if your Helm chart has a templating section with capabilities, and one of those capabilities is to make decisions based on the Kubernetes version, that gets enabled as part of this if you turn it on. So if your Helm chart uses capabilities, you don't need to do any messing around to get those versions in any other way. It's now part of the default Helm capabilities.
We should have called it kapp-controller 0.41, capable capybara. You remember like all those Ubuntu releases? Anyways, good job. Thanks, Neil. And there's a long list of other smaller, less interesting features. In kapp-controller, we also released at the same time the kapp-controller client. Not to be confused with Cap. Don't worry, it's cool. Is there anybody on the call who wants to say anything about the improvements to kapp-control that went out in this release, or is that not interesting at the moment?
Before that, I just have one question for Neil on what he just mentioned. if someone were to write a package using these new capabilities and their kapp-controller happens to be tied to a distribution of Kubernetes that may not have that yet, or are using an old version of kapp-controller, what would be the effect? Will that package just not work? Or will it just not pass that info?
The information will not get passed. So whatever the default behavior of Helm templating is in that case, when a variable is missing.
Okay. And the kapp-controller version and Kubernetes versions, it just depends on my templating if I have some defaulting inside. Okay.
Yeah, it will just won't pick up the new things. So it'll
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, for
go ahead.
key control, we have worked on the user feedback in this release and fixed a bug related to GK, so that key control dev works on GK as well. That was the major improvements on key control side.
Since Scott is in the crowd, just to add on the YTT overlays flags, which help you apply overlays while installing packages, also went in with this release of key control, since you were waiting for that.
Cool. Thanks, Kate Control team, who is also coincidentally strongly overlapping with the kapp team, kapp release 0.53. Any comments on highlights of the new kapp release?
Yep. So we have been working on like a few features which went into this release, and one of them was actually, by the way, Joe, do you also want to share your screen with the agenda items?
Oh, sure. We can, I guess I forgot about that. Okay, ready? I think it's this one.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh.
So we have added the ability to like apply as many changes as possible. So even if one of the change errors out, other changes which are not dependent on that change, you can still go ahead and apply them. And there are two flags available to enable this behavior. One is for applying changes and one is for the waiting stage. And also another feature that we have been working on is to include the resource namespaces in fallback allowed namespaces. So if we don't have permissions to list namespaces, then the existing behavior was to use the namespace provided with -n flag, but now we would also be using the resource namespaces, which are saved in the app metadata during deploy. Also, there were some other improvements, like fixing a few bugs in bash completion and the app metadata file output, and then some ordering issues for service accounts.
Excellent. And Praveen, while you're here, you're also a man of great international renown, budding YouTube film star, destined to appear in theaters worldwide. Congratulations on your recent collaboration with Robusta.
Yeah, that's all thanks to Nathan, I believe.
Okay. Great. So anyone, y'all can watch that if you'd like. It's a lovely 5-minute video. Project roadmap. Joao, would you like to talk about the pull request that you're working on?
I think that part is just like more for the roadmap. Like the roadmap, I don't think changed in the last couple of weeks. So
Okay.
we're just gonna bounce to the backlog itself, which kind of is me. But yeah, I think the roadmap has been stable, and eventually somewhere in the future, like next couple of weeks or month or something, like there might be some updates there. But for the backlog that we've been working on this week, we've been working on kapp-controller to add the caching feature that we talked about prior, that was created on Vendor and is going to be activated on kapp-controller, hopefully in the next release. We already created the PR for that, and gracefully all tests fail, which is always a good sign when you push things to CI, but I'm assuming that somewhere in the next week or something, we'll be able to get this out. And yeah, this is going to be pretty huge, especially because what is like the biggest advantage here? The biggest advantage is for if you have like a registry, OCI registry that is flaky, kapp-controller would be able to keep reconciling applications that are already there and package installs in package repositories as well that you provided without having to talk to the registry. So that's a pretty cool feature that will make your life much better if you are an registry owner, maintainer. So that's that. For kapp-controller. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
So there's entries for YTT, for kapp, for k-control. If you all would like to speak to those, by all means, here's your moment.
Yeah, I can speak something about YTT. I just would like to. Oh, I cannot share my screen. Okay, if you could, okay, yeah, let me share my screen then. So I hope you all are able to see the screen. So this 0.43 version for YTT is released, and we would like to just call out and say thanks to all who participated in our usability testings, and that was really helpful. And yeah, there is a change log as well as bug fixes. So we all encourage you to upgrade to this new version. And then the blog post that I was talking about, the hidden cost of misconfiguration, it also tells us about all the things that you need to get started with this. So we were working on these post-release activities and blog posts during this last week. That's it from YTT side.
Thank you. And kapp team.
It's me again. Yep. So we are trying to finish working on the one of the features, which is periodic renewal of resources, and basically this will be useful in things like certificate rotation. So we would want to switch to a new certificate, let's say after 6 weeks. So we can just mention an annotation which would help us create a new version of the resource or update it after that duration has been passed. So obviously we'll be relying on kapp-controller to do that periodic deployment. And so we are almost, I think, done with this. And then another, I would say, epic that we have been trying to pick up is some more performance enhancement. So we did work on it, I think, a couple of months back, but I think there is still scope to improve or reduce the number of API calls. So that's what we would be exploring in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome, thank you. And I see on k-control.
Yep. So k-control, we have been trying to work on seeing how to add generate an OpenAPI schema from a Helm chart values.yaml file and add it as part of package release process. So we are finalized on which variations we want to work on, because we know, right, that Helm chart, they have the liberty is too much with respect to the comments. You can define the comments anyway. So we have identified few of the use cases which we will be handling, and we are trying to work towards that. And then apart from that, there is some cleanup, very small, which we want to do. So we'll be focusing on that as well. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And this brings us to my favorite part of the meeting. Discussion topics. Let's talk about our feelings about this. Oh, Joao. You know, I've always had a high opinion of Joao. He's truly a leader among men. The programmer's programmer. Joao put in a pull request to be the official image package lead. All those who wish to, wait, what do they say at weddings? Anyways, speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, that topic is just for the community to be aware, even though I did provide the links on the chat, just so everybody know. There's a proposal there, like if you want to comment, if you have like anything to say about it, if you agree, if you disagree, just go for that, go there and just leave your 2 cents, and eventually the other leads will get together and decide if I'm worthy of that position or not. That's that.
Okay, and I think I put in this bullet point for use cases or stories from our community, and I think that today that is Pete and Scott. So not to put you all too much on the spot, but by all means, tell us what you're up to, where you are well served, not well served. We'd love to hear about it.
So I'll go first because I got to drop in about 5 minutes anyway. Yeah, no, I've been some of you've seen my face before. I've been using some of the Carvel tools, mostly in some just little personal side projects that I've been working on. And I posted in the Slack channel about Vendir just a couple days ago because I'm using Vendir in a makefile to synchronize some external dependencies that I don't want to keep checked into my repository, just trying to keep things tight and lean. And I noticed that Vendir will write to its lock file even if there's no changes to the lock file, which updates the timestamp, which tricks Make into thinking that somebody modified the Vendir lock file, so it always repulls the dependencies every single time. So I am actually in the middle of working on a little PR that simply just, I'm not trying to be too clever. I'm just simply checking if there were no modifications, then don't write the file. So it won't modify the file. But I want to make sure that I do my due diligence, write good tests, make sure that all the tests pass. So I'm in that process now, and I'll make a PR and welcome for feedback when that gets ready. So
Awesome, thank you. You're the champion of the peoples.
couple of them at least.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't dealt with Carvel that much. No. Yeah, no, everything is going well, writing a lot of packages and some Y2T magic and having a good time with it so far. Really enjoying the schema validations. So, yeah. The one main one that I'm hoping gets in there at some point is image package that has been kind of pushed off. I know it's been brought up many times and then backburned, is because we keep getting this from different users, is relocating images to different locations instead of all SHAs in the same place to make visibility better. But that's the one thing that I think, well, that and partial relocation of package repositories when dealing with huge package repositories. but that got a lot better with retries now and all of the new additions there. So that got better. It's still relocating the entire thing, but at least it's better. So those are the two things I think that we keep hearing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for passing that on. I think it's always super helpful to get that kind of input from the folks who are, you know, the problem with spending your day writing the tools is that then you're not spending your day using the tools. So very much appreciated. Okay, last but far from least, over to you, Joao.
Here's me again. All right. So I decided to bring this to the community meeting because we were like, it has been like a month or something like that, and we cannot get to a conclusion asynchronously, clearly. So I'm trying to get some consensus about this so we can create a PR and move forward. So there's a thread that I linked there, but I'm going to just give you like the spiel of what we're talking here about. So image package, on the latest release of image package, we changed the behavior on how keychains are used on image package. Previously, image package was activating all keychains by default. And people are like looking confused at me. It's like, keychains, what are you talking about? So when you are running, for example, like image package inside a GKE cluster, you can talk to their service to get a token and then to authenticate to the Google image registry with that token. So there's like some niceness that can happen when you're running inside GKE, AKS, or EKS, right? And those keychains were active by default. So if you were in a registry, if you're like running in a Kubernetes cluster that was in one of these three platforms, image package would try to talk to the services of the platform first, and then go into like the backup, right? That is basically just using your regular username and password, right, that you provide. So this behavior was changed because we like made a sweep change on the keychains. That was something that was bothering us for like a year now. So we changed that. But this has like some ramifications on kapp-controller. So kapp-controller assumed by default that all the keychains were active. So this behavior is no longer true. So we have a couple of options on how to proceed on kapp-controller side. So this would not be like a major problem except for one particular use case. In that particular case is, if you install OpenShift on top of GKE, the kapp-controller will, using image package, will try to talk to GKE, but OpenShift cut the connections. So there's a timeout there that happens and boom, error happens. So you have to go into kapp-controller and deactivate the keychain so it doesn't try to connect to GKE. So this is the today world, right? I don't know if anyone has a question or not, but if you do have, just feel free to interrupt me, okay? So with this new change on image package, what happens is that by default, image package is no longer doing this, right? Like it's no longer activating all the keychains. So kapp-controller has to explicitly enable them and activate them, okay? And now it's as a nicer thing that now you can select which keychains you want to use. So you can, if you are in the GKE cluster, you can say kapp-controller to just activate me just the GKE one. I don't need the other ones, right? So what are the options that we currently have for kapp-controller? So one option is to, by default, like just put on the YAML the activation string, and the behavior will be as it was before, right? Like nothing changes. We change the YAML that and add all the keychains and everything is there, right? So this is like the least invasive solution. The only caveat is that for OpenShift on top of GKE, we would have to remove that flag as we were doing with the flag previously. The other option is we do not provide anything on the YAMLs for kapp-controller, but the user, if they want to activate the keychains, they will have to add the environment variable on their cluster, like on their deployment of kapp-controller, right? So these are the two options that I think are like the more like consensual, eventually like the easiest to do. There's like a third option that I'm not 100% sure if it's feasible or not, because that's I don't know enough Kubernetes to know this, but if kapp-controller has some way to know if it is running in GKE or AKS or EKS, kapp-controller could activate the keychains for you without you having to explicitly setting things up, like set the values up, right? So that would be like an option that I think we can explore in the future and see if that's even possible. So I'd like for us to get to a consensus of like, what is the best approach for kapp-controller? Is to keep things as they are right now and enable all the keychains by default, or do not enable keychains by default, but tell the users that they need to enable the keychain that they care about.
I think like, I think a lot of the issue is that like the truth is most users don't want to care about keychains, right? Like I don't even want to care about keychains. So it feels like another one of these cases where the best user experience is the one where everything just works by default, even if you're, and it sounds like the pathological case is OpenShift on GKE, right?
Yes. So like that's a problem. The problem of OpenShift on GKE is a problem that is like you have to remove you cannot use the keychains. Nevertheless, like for example, if you are in GKE,
yeah,
and you're trying to get an image that lives in an AKR, the keychain will kick in and it will try to connect, and it will try to connect to the services of AKS. And it's going to fail, and it's going to go, and it's going to work, but there's like a delay there, right? Like because if you're in a particular IS and try to get images from other ISs, that registries that are in other ISs, then it will incur in a little bit of a penalty there. Nothing that we like. It was happening before already, but yeah.
So I know Neil and I looked a little bit at the version strings of different Kubernetes, whatever you want to call them, IaaSes, and GKE in particular does put a GKE suffix at the end of their version. So in that sense, they're actually the easiest one to deal with if we get that version string, and that's something that I could imagine plumbing through in kapp-controller. I think we could do that from day one. I think we could do that out of the gate with this feature, that we could just say, specifically, we can tell when you're in GKE, and we can optimize for other IaaSes later, but because that's the most problematic one and it's the easiest one to identify, that seems, I don't know, does that sound crazy? This seems possible to me.
I'm sorry, I did not 100% understood your suggestion. Was your suggestion to like the number 3 that I said, that's like make kapp-controller a little bit smarter and decide if he wants to activate the keychains or not?
Little bit of hybrid, but like, let's say they're on by default, but we put in a hook, we put in that flow for kapp-control to be a little bit smarter, but the only place where it has any effect when we first ship it is GKE. So like we write the plumbing for kapp-controller to be a little smarter, but we only handle with the first release of this, we only handle the GKE case. So because that's the one that breaks anyways, and that's the easiest one to handle, so that we say, okay, for the other ones, you're going to be paying a very small performance penalty that you've been paying all along, and that's fine. And for GKE, we know how to identify that we're in GKE and turn the keychains off. So like, you have something that by default, it just returns the default and all the keychains stay on exactly as they always have been. But if it knows it's on GKE, it says do the GKE thing and turn the keychains off somehow, right? Does that make sense?
The only caveat is OpenShift. Like if you have OpenShift on top of GKE, does it report as being in GKE, or does it report as being in an OpenShift, the
I see.
Kubernetes version?
I see your point. I cannot run that experiment because I don't have an OpenShift license to install onto GKE. I've asked about that in the past. Sorry, that's a closed source discussion. This is our community meeting.
It's fine. So like, so I think like your suggestion is to enable all of them by default, and then create an issue to see if it is possible to make kapp-controller a little bit smarter and make it like select the keychains.
Yeah,
does it make sense, like it being like a double step thing here?
It just, in particular, I think the team that maintains, honestly, very selfishly, the team that maintains kapp-controller will pay a penalty if we create a situation where kapp-controller needs special configuration, right? Like it's less work for our users and for ourselves if kapp-controller works by default in every environment.
Okay, so
I think
go.
So I think the one other option that I've seen done in other tools as well is, in the end, the release artifacts that you put on GitHub, you could easily have just different YAMLs as the kapp-controller releases, with have a EKS1, have a GKE kapp-controller minus GCP because it's Google Cloud Platform or whatever, have an OCP one that turns them all off, have an AWS one, have an Azure one, have a all keychains and have a no keychains. Like whatever those different permutations are, you could have specific ones, and then that makes it more optimal for every use case without the end user needing to actually care what the syntax of a keychain string is supposed to be.
That's really smart. That feels like a smart middle ground, honestly, because that way there's a file we can point somebody to of like, you want this config, you want, that even if they can't find it to themselves, we can point it to them, and rather than explaining like, oh, you need to take out your soldering iron and flip the bit on line 64.
Yeah, or just release it as a YTT template and have it as a data value.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, right? Like we could just release it as a overlay that just applies the correct incantation, given that you just provide like a where you want to go, you want to go here, so that's what we do.
Right. And I think the one benefit of having the static manifests is that the barrier for entry is lower. I don't need a CLI on my machine in order to do that. I don't need YTT, right? As much as I have YTT on all my machines, but not necessarily everyone will. So you want to have that lower barrier of someone being able to do a kubectl apply. Which having those different ones until hopefully down the road, kapp-controller is smart to understand what keychains are useful to it and what isn't, possibly that option 3 you were talking about, Joe, and then that. But until that happens, having a middle ground of, hey, use your specific IaaS one may be a good temporary solution until that gets more ironed out into what that would be. And maybe that could be like cached. So like you would make a try when kapp-controller starts to the different keychains. If one of them times out and fails, it can be cached as don't retry this. Basically, like to in memory stop the keychain. So yeah, the first time it's still going to run and fail every time it reboots kapp-controller, but you could have some type of a caching mechanism for which keychains to use or not down the road.
Okay. Sounds good. Does anybody else have any suggestions, opinions? All right then. So I think we got to a good middle ground. So I'll write up on that thread the conclusions that we came here to, and please make sure that I did not misrepresent them. Cool. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thanks, Joel, and thanks, Scott, for talking that through. Very helpful. And that's it. That's the whole agenda. Anybody have any last minute additions? Okay, this concludes community meeting, Carvel, September 28, 2022. It'll never happen again. Thanks for coming. See you at our next meeting in 2 weeks. Goodbye.